I've been so excited to check this thing out, being that I own the Rolex GMT Master and that I also own a vintage Tudor sub, and I love vintage watches in general. This is one of those things that when I first saw it announced, I thought I may be a potential owner of in the future. And in the flesh, having my hands on it now, it does not disappoint. So this is the Tudor Pepsi. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, it's called the Tudor Pepsi because you have the blue and red, like the Pepsi logo. I have a GMT Master, which they call the Coke, which is called because of the black and red. I know we're really clever with naming things these days, but anyway, what's so cool about this is you have a black bay style case, which is good for 200 meters of water resistance, and you have that great vintage Tudor look, which they've been so masterful at lately, but you get the additional function of a GMT. GMT stands for Greenwich Mean Time, and basically in layman's terms, GMT gives you the ability to track multiple time zones. And what's so cool about this too is, olden days, Tudor had to use outsourced movements from ETA or ETA. But nowadays, they're actually making their own movements, and this one is no different. It features the MT5652, and it actually shares very similar architecture with the 3285 movement that Rolex is using in their GMTs. A couple quick specs about the movement. As you can see, based on that smooth sweep of those lovely snowflake hands, which by the way, those snowflake hands I think first appeared on Tudors back about 1969 or so. That smooth sweep is indicative of the fact that this is a 28,800 beat per hour movement. So you do have a nice high beat function here. And one of the other most impressive things about this movement is the fact, beyond the fact that it is highly anti-magnetic, is the fact that it has a 70-hour power reserve, which is extremely high. Most of the watches you guys would be buying in the $1,000 range or below, you're gonna be lucky to get 40 hours out of them. And even most Rolexes for years were hovering around the 50-hour power range. So the fact that you can have 70 hours, you basically take this off your wrist on Friday, do anything with it on the weekend, and then pick it back up on Monday, it's still going to be ticking, which is just an awesome thing. Now, what else is awesome is this, to me, is the perfect size for any wristwatch. To me, the 40 millimeter plus or minus is the sweet spot. This one coming in at about 41, 42 mil is absolutely perfect. This to me is the perfect wearability of a wristwatch. Nowadays women are wearing larger wristwatches. 40 millimeter isn't a problem. I can definitely see a woman wearing this piece, but also as a man, this is also exactly where I think the sweet spot is for us as well. When you wear a bulkier watch, and like for example, if I'm wearing one of my Panerai radio mirrors that's 45 millimeter, after a while it gets a little bit tiring on the wrist, but below 45, you're still kind of in the sweet spot of what's really good for wearability. Speaking of the sweet spot, as I mentioned, the styling on this watch, I absolutely adore. The vintage nod to the snowflake hands, the vintage style Tudor logo. Speaking of, there's also the vintage kind of Tudor rosebud here. They have aced, in my mind, and I know that I'm biased, the classic cues of this watch brand, but on top of that, they've made it something which I thought it always should have been, which is something special and bespoke, not just the cheaper Rolex. And so they very much have now their own kind of gravitas, their own specialty about their brand, something that makes them unique, but they're also doing in-house movements. So to me, they have exactly everything they need to be successful. And when you're looking at one of these, I would be hard-pressed to spend more money on another equivalency, or even let alone jump up to like a watch like my GMT Master. When you think about everything that you're getting here, it's really hard to understand how anybody could possibly beat this value proposition. Speaking of value proposition, this watch is about $3,900, which is spectacular. I mean, to give you some sort of a context today, if you wanted to buy a GMT Master, you're going to be looking at over double that. And you're really not going to get much added in terms of functionality other than you're getting some of that extra brand cachet. I love the flat black dial, has a great vintage kind of look to it. I love, again, like I said, those snowflake hands are just my thing. I love the Pepsi bezel, even though I am a Coke guy. I think watches need to be a little bit playful, and especially when you look at watches like this, which are clearly tool watches, it's nice to give them a little bit of a pop, something a little bit unique that makes them stand out ever so much. It's just something that I really appreciate. Of course, since this is the GMT, we're gonna need to talk about the movement. As I did, I listed the specs, but let's go ahead and actually show you how this guy works. So first and foremost, again, you have this lovely rose crown, which unscrews, and it is of course screw down. As I mentioned, this watch is waterproof to 200 meters. The way this thing unscrews too, which I can't convey through camera, is wonderful. I mean, look at the size of the housing for this thing. It feels super robust. Winding is almost imperceptible. The movement is that refined. There isn't that like clicking or ticking in the background when you wind it. It feels Rolex level in terms of refinement. But first position is winding. This is a windable movement. Second position, which is something that I love, and if you guys saw my recent video on why I recommend the GMT Master over the sub, this watch also has, as you can see there, the adjustable hour hand. Something that Omega's been doing recently on the new Seamasters, and something that I think everybody should be doing, is having the ability to quick set your hour hand. Because what's so great about this, you don't have to reset the watch every time you want to change time zones. So as you can see, the second hand's still ticking. I can leave the minutes correct, but if I want to jump a couple time zones, it's that easy. You may have also noticed the date change there. That's actually how you set the date of the watch as well, is rotating through the hours. But you know, for example, let's say right now I'm in Seattle, as I mentioned before, and I'm going to go off to New York City. New York's 3 hours ahead. All I need to do is go 1, 2, 3, and the watch is set. It could not be easier than that, and I love it for that. Now, of course, you do want to set, you know, the main time of the watch as well. And so what you can do is you pull it out all the way, and my fingers are a little fat here. There we go. You'll see that it's hacking, the second hand will stop, and now you can actually set the watch. And the way you set one of these is the same way you would set a Rolex GMT Master, is you want to set your GMT hand first. So what you would do, let's just say I want to set the GMT hand to 4 a.m. I would line it up with 4 o'clock, and then let's just say it's 4:20. So we'll go ahead and set that, put the crown back in, it starts ticking. So let's say I want to track the local time zone as 4 a.m., but let's say where I'm at currently, I'm 6 hours ahead of that. So I'm going to go ahead and set my minute hand down here, or my hour hand, excuse me, to 8 o'clock. And there you go. It's that simple to set it. And again, if you want to change the dates, you just scroll over 24-hour periods, and it's that easy. You can quickly set the dates as well. It's super easy to use. And then of course, since we want to keep the watch watertight, you just apply some pressure and screw the crown back in. Now it does also of course have a 24-hour bezel. This is a bi-directional bezel, so you can turn it either way, unlike dive watches, which are typically unidirectional or one way. So you can of course align the dot to A, track a different time zone to, you know, align with a different time zone, or B, if you wanted to, you know, use it as a timer, not a problem either. Just line it up with your minute hand, and as time kicks by, you know, every one of these intervals is 5 minutes. So again, very functional, very usable. And if you're like me and you like just doing things askew to add some flavor to your watches, you can rotate this and just get the colors where you want them to be too. By the way, this bezel turns wonderfully. It feels extremely well made, and I also do like the edge on it. That kind of serrated edge is really satisfying to hold. As you can see as well, you have a very traditional oyster style case, which Rolex has had, you know, for over half a century, well beyond over a century. And of course, as it is, you know, Rolex DNA, they don't give the see-through case backs, which is something I would love to see at some point. Bracelet on this guy is fantastic, and the lug-to-lug is 22 mil, which for a Rolex product is actually kind of funny, because usually Rolex sticks to the 20 mil, something people have been complaining about on the deep sea for a long time. It works great. The bracelet is brushed, which, this being a tool watch, is actually something you would kind of expect. There is high polish, however, on the outside of the links, and there are these like semi-rivets as well, which are kind of fun to run your fingers along. You know, the way a watch feels is something that very much adds to how special it is, and I love the way these feel. These are, of course, screw-out links, and of course it does use a newer style Rolex clasp. It's marked Tudor. There is that pivoting mechanism here to open it. And of course you can see Tudor Genève. This one of course still has its stickers on it, as it's basically a brand new watch. And the thing I like too is you can do micro adjustments. So if your wrist is swelling in the summer or it gets cold out, a couple pops here, no big deal, you can resize the bracelet to you. And it just, of course, feels very solid when you close it. What else can I say about this? Clearly I'm in love with it, clearly I want one. So before I get too carried away, hopefully this gives you a good overview and what you can expect from one of these guys. I don't know how you can beat this watch for the money. I think it's an incredible value. And I guess before we jump back, let's just go ahead and do a really quick wrist shot next to my vintage GMT. my best not to ruin the straps here. There you go. And as you can see, it actually wears a little bit bigger than my 40mm GMT, as you would expect with a 42-ish millimeter case. So I think this watch is spectacular. And before I go on a rant, I'm just gonna cut it here and let's go ahead and jump back because I'm in love. Hey guys, so welcome back. I absolutely love this watch. I think it's pretty obvious if you watch this review. I'm not too shy about that. I actually, truth be told, like it better than my GMT Master, my Rolex GMT Master 2. I think the only hesitation I would have in swapping the two out is that the GMT Master seems to be continuing to hold strong and maybe climb in value, and I don't know that it'd be a good time to sell it right now. But I have to say, the Tudor GMT is just incredible. I mean, $3,900 for this watch is amazing value. Tudor very much has become what Rolex used to be, as Rolex does this upmarket thing. I don't know what that's all about, but make no mistakes, this is an absolutely incredible watch that I genuinely love, genuinely would be happy to own, and genuinely could not recommend enough. I mean, the in-house movement, the quality of the case, the construction, everything about this watch is absolutely top-notch. That's my opinion. Obviously, I'm pretty biased. Like, I genuinely walked away wanting to buy this watch. And of course, by the way, thanks to my friends at Bernard Watch for letting me check this thing out. You know, they're doing me a favor, but I think they know secretly at some point I may end up buying a watch from them again, and they hook me. So anyway, guys, thanks to Bernard for letting me borrow the watch. Thanks to you guys for continuing to watch my videos. Like I say always, I genuinely appreciate it. Is this watch not really worth the hype that I think it should be? I mean, I'm truly enamored with it, but I'd love to hear you guys' perspective. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What other watches would you recommend for the same price? Genuinely, I do read as many comments as I can, and I really appreciate them. Thank you guys so much. As always, if you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. Please hit the bell icon. That way, new videos come out, you guys see them in your feeds. And as always, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.